Hello everybody, I'm back with another video and I'm going to be spilling the tea on the worst of the worst days of my life. Now I'm just going to jump right into the story because it is going to be a long one. It is going to be emotional. So there is a tear warning. I don't know that I would cry, but I might. So, the worst of the worst days of my life happened February 8th, 2018. So this was February, we are now in July. Been a few months. It's been several months actually. That day, we'll start with the day. That day started out like any other day. It was a school day. My mom went to work. My brother went to school. I stayed home because I was still looking for a job, and I still am. But right now I put that on hold due to my health issues, like surgery and all that. But anyway, that day started off like any normal day. My mom was perfectly fine. She woke up, she did her thing, got ready for work, dropped off my brother at school. He was fine. He was perfect. Everybody was perfect that morning. My brother got home at like 3 o'clock that day, and my mom got home around 6:30, 7 o'clock that night. We had dinner, and then everybody kind of just does their own thing at night. My mom watches her soap operas on TV on Netflix. I watch my soap operas on TV or, on my phone on Netflix. My brother does his own thing. He did his homework, his music, whatever. So everything was fine up until about, trying to remember if it was like 8:30 or 9:30. I think it was closer to 9:30 because all this happened like early morning, late night. You know what I mean? So my mom comes to me about 9:30. I'll just say about 9:30. I don't remember the exact time, but it was also a quick note. February 8th is actually my best friend's birthday. I believe he turned 20, I believe. It's either 20 or 19. I believe it's 20 though. No, it might actually be 19 because I think he's a year younger than me. Anyway, that's his birthday. So that's what also made it a weird day. So about 9:30 that night, my mom came to me, and I was lying in the bed where I'm sitting right now. I was lying down and I was just watching TV, and she's like, I don't feel right. And I was like, well, what do you mean? What's wrong? Like, what's wrong? She was like, I don't know. I don't feel right. Something, I just don't, she kept motioning to her chest. And I was kind of like, I'm the one that has asthma. She doesn't. And so I was kind of like, okay, do you just need to rest for a little bit? Side note, I am glad we did not go to sleep that night. Reason being, she was like, I think I need to get checked out. I think I need to go to the ER. And I was like, let's go. If you're not feeling right, let's go, because I'm not taking any chances that something bad were to happen. Well, we raced to the ER. She drove herself. So she drove all of us. She wanted to drive. She didn't want to go by ambulance and anything like that. She didn't want to cause a big deal out of it. Well, she drove herself to the ER. We went to Memorial Hermann Katy. This is where we live, Katy, Texas. We went to Memorial Hermann Katy, which is the place that I have stayed a couple of times for different reasons. So we really trust that hospital, and we really trust Memorial Hermann. So we got there, and they kind of asked her, you know, what's going on, what do you feel? And she's like, I can't describe it, but it's just a weird sensation in my chest. And I was like, in my mind, thinking the worst is about to happen. And so I was watching the nurse and the triage nurse. So we were in the triage room. It's me, my brother, I'm holding her stuff, and I'm holding like my stuff, and then my mom is in a chair. And the way the triage room is set up, it's like a computer mounted on the wall, the chair that the patient sits in, and then one chair for like a family member or whatever. Well, I was sitting in that chair, my brother was standing over me, and I was watching the nurse. And the nurse was kind of like, okay, this is what's going on. Or no, she was like, okay, so this is what's going on. Let me hook you up to the EKG machine. So she was clipping her to the EKG machine, and when she took the first reading, I was watching her, and I was watching her facial expressions, and I was watching her body expression. And when she did that first reading, she looked at the paper that comes out of the EKG machine, and she looked out at the paper, and the face she made, it was kind of like, whoa, what's going on here? So she's like, that doesn't seem right, let me do another one. She does another EKG. She looks at the paper again, and then that's when she's like, the next thing she says, I need to go get the doctor. She runs to the back, she calls people on that little radio thing that they have in their ears. All of a sudden, 5 to 8 people rush into the room, and they're like, the doctor, I remember his name, I'm not going to say his name because I don't think that would be okay because I don't have his permission. Anyway, the doctor says, ma'am, it looks like you're having a heart attack. Let's do another EKG just to confirm this. So they do 3 EKGs in total. So 2 the nurse does herself, the last one the doctor does himself. And the next thing that happens is they're doing another EKG, and he's like, do you have any family members you need to call or this and that? And I'm like, let me go do that. I told my brother to stay with her, and she was completely fine. Her reaction to it was not like, oh my god, what is going on? She was more like, I'm having a heart attack right now? That was her reaction. Those were her exact words. She was just kind of like, right now? Like, right now. She had to ask a couple times. But they were like, yes, it looks like you're having one. We're going to do, I don't even know how many total. I counted 3. They might have done 5 EKGs. So I was just like, all right, I need to call my aunt. I call several of my aunts, and mind you, this is a weekday. I believe it was a Thursday. And they all live in southwest Houston. One lives off of Beltway 8, one lives somewhere around there. It's really close. It's not that far from each other. Anyway, I call both of them, and I'm panicking because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going on in that room for those few moments that I was on the phone with my aunt. Or my aunts. I called 2 of them. And they are my great aunts, so my mom's true aunts. They're my grandmother's sisters. So I called them, and I'm freaking out, and I'm like, Mom, you need to get over to Memorial Hermann right now. Mom is having a heart attack. I don't know what's going to happen, but she's having a heart attack right now. You need to get over here right now. And they're like, all right, we're on our way. Well, the next thing that happens is I go back in the room, and they're already taking her. She's walking on her own. She's walking fine. She looked fine. She did not look like she was having a heart attack. And another thing that shocked the doctors to their core was the fact that she was so young. My mom is only 50 years old, and she's going to be 51 in September. So for her age, she was considered extremely young. You don't have this kind of symptoms or anything happen like this until you're like late 60s. So my mom was fairly young when this happened, and so that night they rushed her. They took her to the trauma bay in that hospital, in the ER room. They were trying to get IV lines in her arms, and they were getting her prepped for a procedure. They were taking off all her jewelry, all her clothes, and handing them to me. And I was just, my aunts are calling me, and I'm like, you gotta get over here. They're about to do a procedure, and I don't know what's gonna happen. Well, then I would say like 20 minutes later, they called in a cardiologist. Now, this cardiologist I have never met. My aunts don't know. And my mom didn't know. She never had to see a cardiologist until now. Well, so she was in the bed, and she was fine. She was like, I'm okay. I'm fine. Like a trooper. And the doctors still had the EKG heart machine on her. They had everything. She was connected to a whole bunch of wires. I swear every machine in that trauma bay was being used on my mom. And so they had multiple IVs on her. I think one of the IVs didn't work, so they had to use one big IV in one of her arms. So that was that. About 20 minutes later, the cardiologist comes in and says, this is a procedure I'm going to do. I'm going to probably put a stent in the artery. And what they found out was that her aortic valve was 98% blocked. So what they realized is that, and there were also like 2 to 3 other smaller arteries that were also blocked, but not nearly as bad as the 98% aortic valve. Now, the aortic is the most important valve in your heart. So that was the one that they were focusing on, and that's the one that they were going to put a stent in. Now, I didn't even get to talk to the cardiologist before my mom had the surgery. So I never met him, and it was just like an in and out thing. He came in, explained to her what they were gonna do, and he went out and he went to go get ready for the procedure. So they were prepping my mom, and they had to go in through her groin area. So they were prepping her there, and then got her in a hospital gown and all that. And so about no later than 5 minutes later, we were already wheeling her to the cath lab. That's what they called it. It's like a catheter lab. They were already wheeling her over there, and I remember my aunts calling, and they were like, where is your mom? What's going on? And I was just like, look, I don't know what's going on. All I know is that mom is gonna have a procedure. Sorry, I got something on my hand. I don't know what it is. That's kind of gross. Anyway, look, I don't know what they're doing with her. They're just gonna take her to the cath lab. They're gonna do this procedure. Meet me in this building on this floor. Da 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 da. So my mom gave her kisses, said her goodbyes, and then we couldn't go past the doors. And so they directed us, me and my brother, to a waiting room. It was a big waiting room, and they were like, just wait here, and when the procedure's done or halfway through, depending on what's going on, the doctor or somebody will come out and talk to you. And we're like, all right. And then at first we had no worries, because the nurses were informing me that the procedure would take like 30 to 45 minutes long. And then I'd say like 20 more minutes, my aunts start to show up. And it was just two of them. One with her husband, my Aunt Marie with her husband, Ernest, my Uncle Ernest, and then my Aunt Lou with her partner, Mickey, Thea Mick, and, yeah, they got there and they were kind of, what happened? And I was just like, I don't know. She just said she wasn't feeling right, and so she wanted to get checked out, and yeah, that's basically what happened. And so I was like, I don't know what's going on. And she's been in there for like 30 minutes when my Aunt Lou got there, because I think she was the last one to get there. I think. I'm not sure. Can't remember. Anyway, but yeah, I was just like, she's already been in there for like 30 minutes, and they said that that's how long the procedure takes. And then we were still waiting for quite a while, and then all of a sudden, code blue. Code blue is when somebody flatlines. I immediately had this gut feeling that the code blue rang. And so I'll start with that. The code blue rang, and it said code blue cath lab 2. Code blue cath lab 2. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And I was like, I had this gut feeling. It's like your stomach turns, and it's just the worst feeling. I don't know if it's that mother-daughter bond. It had to be. But my gut was telling me that was my mom. And I started crying immediately. And my aunts were trying to calm me down. They were like, it's not your mom, it could be anybody else, it could have been somebody else, it could have been, and I was like, no, you don't understand, that's my mom. And I'm in tears, I'm a wreck, and I'm like, you don't understand, that's my mom, it's my mom. I kept telling them, it's my mom, I know it's her. 30 minutes go by or something like that, and then one of the doctors comes out. It's not the cardiologist, and it's not the ER doctor. It was a different doctor that they brought in. She comes out and she says, she coded. I heard that and I started bawling. My brother was asleep. He was so worn out. He was so tired. He fell asleep. And so my tia Mick was waking him up and was like, you gotta wake up. This is serious now. The doctor came out and she was like, she coded. We were able to get her back, but we had to shock her 3 times. And I heard that and I freaked out. And at that point, they didn't know if my mom was gonna make it through the night or not. So at that moment, that's when I really started to freak out, because I didn't know if an hour before that was the last time I was gonna see my mom, and that was the last time that she was able to give me a kiss. So when that happened, I was a wreck. I was crying and begging them to do everything that they can, and they didn't know if she was gonna make it through the night. They didn't know what was gonna happen. Then all of a sudden, things started to calm down. And then a few minutes later, or a little bit later, the cardiologist came out, and me and my brother were a wreck. Me and my family were a wreck. Most of us were crying and upset and didn't know what to do. So, the cardiologist came out, and he came out and he explained everything from what he was doing to what happened to she coded. He got her back. He was actually on her chest doing compressions as they were trying to get her back. And so all I could do was thank him. I couldn't stop crying, but me and my brother thanked him, and I remember what I told him. I just said, "Thank you for saving my mom." And he kind of teared up, and he was kind of like, "Don't thank me. It's my job." You know, that kind of thing. And so my brother did the same, and he was crying, and we shared a hug with the doctor, and the next thing he said was that my mom needed to go by life flight to the Texas Medical Center. And I was kind of like, okay, is she gonna be okay? And he was like, I promise you, they will do everything there that they can. They have more resources than we have here. That's why I'm sending her over there. And so he said they have every machine possible to use towards her heart and to use to help her. So she was transported by life flight to the Texas Medical Center. She went to Memorial Hermann there in the medical center, and she got there in the early morning of the 9th of February. It was super, super early in the morning, and she was in the heart ICU. It's different than the regular ICU. This ICU is catered more towards the heart muscle. So she was transported there. She got there maybe 15 minutes later after we arrived at the hospital. And she got there. She had a balloon pump in her leg, and that was helping her heart. And after a few days that she was there, she got better in a sense to where they could take out the pump. Now, with taking out the pump, it's a very painful thing for my mom to go through. She was not the biggest fan of that, and when she was telling me what was happening, and then when I went back in there to her room, there was like blood droplets all over the floor, and I was like, oh my god, what happened in here? And she was like, they had to take out that pump, and that pump was in her main artery, and so when they took it out, blood went everywhere, and so they had to hold pressure. And at one point, the doctors and the nurses took turns putting all their weight on that tiny little incision on my mom's groin. And she said that was the most painful part. It wasn't even the taking out of the balloon, it was them putting the pressure on that. And so I was kind of like, so you're okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm okay. But that night that she was transported to the medical center, when she actually got there, she looked normal. She didn't look like her face, she was just all, happy and this and that, and she was different. She was very much different. And I was like, whoa, you're okay. And that gave me reassurance my mom's gonna be okay. And so, yeah, she was there for a few days, and then she was able to get bumped down to a lower level, a different part of the heart ICU, but it's like you don't have as much people coming in and out all through the night and anywhere. So it was like a level down. So she got moved there a few days later, and then that's when they started doing like therapeutic things with her. And by therapeutic things, walking. They would get her to walk around the ICU, which was a pretty big circle. Honestly, it was a really big circle. You could get easily lost in there. But they had her walk that. They did that one day. Then they had her take a few stairs. And then she graduated to taking even more stairs. And so, yeah, they did that for a couple of days. And then by Valentine's Day, she was released on Valentine's Day. And she said that was the greatest Valentine's Day, was being released from the hospital home. And she could not wait to get home. I couldn't wait to get home. I was sleeping at my aunt's house. I was sleeping at the hospital room, and it was bad. I was a wreck. But at that point, I didn't care what I looked like, what anything else looked like, what I was wearing. I just was focused on my mom getting better. And so, yeah, she was released on Valentine's Day, and she was home, and now she, like a few months later, not a few months, I'd say like a month later, she got released. She got the all clear from the cardiologist over at Memorial Hermann. He's the same one who did the procedure on her. She did have to go in for a stress test and another type of test, I believe, before she had to go back to work, just to make sure that that stent that they put in was working fine. Well, it was weird because the test that she did, and the cardiologist got it, the test said that the stent didn't work at all. And so the cardiologist got concerned, and he was like, I need you to go to the ER, tell him I need them to admit you immediately. I need to do this procedure again so that I can see what's going on. He went in, and she was there for a couple of days. He went in, and that stent was completely normal. It was fine. And he was like, that happens sometimes. The test tells me one thing, but actually going in there and seeing what's going on is a completely different story. So in the end, it was the wrong results. The results were wrong. Everything was normal. She looked fine. Everything was good with her heart. And so a few weeks later, he had cleared her to go back to work, and yeah, now it's July. She has gone through cardio rehab, and they just do all these exercises with her that make her heart race, and then they're watching her, so they're seeing how she's doing, how her heart's reacting. Everything is normal now. She is a-okay. That is just one of the worst days, if not the worst day of my life. Not knowing if I was gonna see my mom again, if the hour earlier that was the last time I would see my mom. So, yeah, now everything's fine. she's fine. Everything with her heart is normal. So we're all just really, really happy. I have a glass of tea that I just neglected. But yeah, that is me spilling the tea on the worst day of my life, my mom's heart attack. And yeah, I will be back, and I will probably do another video tonight or later on today. I know it's like almost 3 o'clock. But yeah, I will probably do another video here pretty soon, so I just have to think of what kind of video I'm gonna do. Yeah, so that is me spilling the tea on the worst day of my life. Give it a thumbs up if you thought this story was interesting. Another little thing I wanted to say is I kept faith. My family is we're all really close to our faith. I kept faith in him and the Lord, and that my mom would be okay, and I couldn't thank him more than bringing our mom back to us. And now she has a whole different outlook on life. I look at life differently. I cherish every little moment with my brother, my mom, my other brother, my friends, my family, everybody. And I just couldn't thank the Lord enough for what he's giving me and the blessing of life he's giving me, and the blessing of an incredibly strong mom. And so yeah, that was another little thing that I wanted to add in there. But yeah, that is me spilling the tea. I know I've said this before, but that is me spilling the tea on the worst day of my life. But I just thought I'd share that with you guys. So yeah, I'll probably do another video here pretty soon, like today. So just gotta figure out what kind of video I'm gonna do. So yeah, if you like the story and you think the story was interesting, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, babes.